This is Atlantic Television Network. Welcome to Global News at 9 p.m. First, the highlights. INEC begins distribution of materials for Anambra election. Police assure hitch-free local government elections. November 8 in Taraba. Tinubu vows to crush terrorism in Nigeria. NNPCL links power to greed. Typhoon kills 140 persons in Philippines. And FIFA appoints referees for Nigeria vs Gabon playoff. Hilda Bassi receives second Guinness World Record plaque.
In a world where marketing
Welcome back, and now to the rest of our stories. Independent National Electoral Commission has commenced the distribution of sensitive and non-sensitive materials to various local government areas across Anambra State ahead of the governorship election scheduled for Saturday, November 8, 2025. The distribution exercise, which took place at the Central Bank of Nigeria branch in Awka, was supervised by the State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Dr. Queen Elizabeth Ogu, amid heavy deployment of security personnel, while party agents, representatives of civil society organizations, and security operatives were also present at the venue to monitor the movement of the materials. The sensitive materials distributed included the Bimodal Voter Accreditation System (BVAs), Forms EC8A and Forms EC8B, which, according to the Commission, would be moved to the various registration area centers ahead of the elections, adding that the early distribution of materials was part of measures to ensure that the election commenced on schedule across the state. Ago also said INEC had made comprehensive preparations in collaboration with political parties, security agencies, and civil society organizations to guarantee a free, fair, transparent, and credible process, while the Commissioner of Police in charge of election security in Anambra, Abayomi Shogunle, said the number of security personnel deployed for the poll had been increased from 45,000 to 55,000 officers, and the measure is to ensure adequate protection of voters, electoral officials, and election materials across the 21 local government areas. The European Union has deployed 687 observers to Anambra State ahead of Saturday's governorship election under the EU Support to Democratic Governance in Nigeria program. Through the program, the EU is enabling its civil society partners to deploy election observers, strengthen peace building, advance disability and gender inclusion, as well as counter misinformation and reinforce public confidence in the democratic process. According to a statement by the European Union, in Abuja, 7 of the 16 EU SDG and implementing partners, namely the Kuka Center, IAGA Africa, International Press Center, Center for Media and Society, Nigeria Women Trust Fund, Elect Her, and TAF Africa are already on the ground in Anambra State, adding that the key feature of these unified deployments is to obtain a broad view of the election by utilizing the diverse skills and experience of the EU SDG and partners, as well as analyzing the findings and compiling them into a comprehensive report that will be made public and available to all stakeholders. The observers are distributed across several thematic areas, including election integrity and results verification, disability inclusion with trained observers and standalone sign language interpreters, gender participation with observers tracking women-related issues, as well as media and misinformation tracking through journalists and fact-checkers deployed across polling locations, peace building and conflict prevention, and the monitoring of polling logistics and the distribution of sensitive election materials. The chairman of the commission, Professor Joash Amopitun, during a stakeholder meeting in Orca, said about 24,000 ad hoc staff will be deployed, while about 540 journalists have been accredited to cover the election, adding that the commission is fully committed to the governorship poll in line with its commitments to credible and inclusive elections. According to INEC, 16 candidates from 16 political parties are contesting the governorship election to wrest power from the incumbent Professor Chukwuma Soludo, who is also seeking re-election under the platform of All Progressives Grand Alliance. Oyo State government has retreated its commitment to the welfare of workers in the course of its industry-friendly policies in the state. The Commissioner for Investments, Trade, Cooperatives and Industry, Adebisi Adeniyi, made this known during a sensitization visit to the Nigerian breweries and the Nigerian bottling company Coca-Cola. The Commissioner for Investment, represented by the Director of Industry, Mrs. Majidat Olarewaju, who led the delegation of the committee to both organizations, said Makinde had charged the committee to ensure a good rapport between employers and their staff in companies operating in Oyo State. Addressing the management team and the leaders of the labor unions at both organizations, Adeniyi identified welfare and safety concerns as well as maintenance of peace as the core interest of the committee, and also charged the management team at NBC to expand the restaurant facility to ensure a healthier and hygienic dining environment. In their separate responses, the corporate affairs manager, Mrs. Ifoma Okoye, and the plant manager at NBC, Mr. Andrew Barnabas, expressed NBC's readiness to work with the government and comply with government policies to enhance trade and workers' welfare. Oyo State government has approved about 38 billion naira for the reconstruction of the 30-kilometer Igboho-Kishi road in the Oke-Ogun area of the state. The State Commissioner for Information and Orientation, Dr. Tun Oyelade, who disclosed this after the weekly Executive Council meeting held at the Governor's office, Ibadan, the state capital, said the move was in the fulfillment of Governor Seyi Makinde's promise to link all 6 geopolitical zones of the state through the construction of durable and accessible road networks. Oyelade said key infrastructural projects were approved, including the reconstruction of the 30-kilometer Igboho-Kishi road in the Oke-Ogun area and 38.9-kilometer Ido-Akofo Eruwa road in the Abarapa axis, adding that the council also approved the construction, installation, distribution, operation and maintenance of the 12-megawatt Ibadan independent gas power plant project. He said the approval would ensure the attainment of sustainable infrastructural development in the state by providing uninterrupted electricity to critical government facilities such as the State Secretariat, Government House, Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State, High Court, State Hospitals, and the Lekon Shalami Stadium, among others. The state government has signed a $50 billion investment agreement with a consortium of international firms under the Sunshine Infrastructure Joint Venture to establish a major refinery and free trade zone in the state. Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa's Chief Press Secretary Ebenezer Adeniyi, who disclosed this in a statement, said the consortium includes Backbone Infrastructure, MJ Care Investment Finance, China Harbour and Honeywell OUP, and described the partnership as a strategic step towards sustainable industrialization and long-term economic stability. Aiyedatiwa said the initiative is expected to position Ondo as a major industrial hub in Nigeria and assure the investors of his administration's commitment to transparency, a conducive business environment and the protection of their investments, adding that his government had been deliberate in implementing policies that promote ease of doing business. Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke has expressed confidence that the internal crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party at the national level will not hinder his bid for a second term, declaring that he is cruising to victory ahead of the August 8, 2026 governorship election. Adeleke disclosed this in a statement signed by his spokesperson, Olawale Rashid, in Osogbo, described the lingering disagreement as a family affair that will soon be resolved, urging party members to remain focused and united. The governor also directed PDP leaders across local government and was to intensify mobilization ahead of the poll, insisting that the party remains the strongest force in the state. This is coming after last week Adeleke appeared before the PDP governorship screening committee in Abuja, where he insisted no candidate could defeat him in Osun. A faction loyal to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, recently declared the suspension of National Chairman Umar Damagum and five other working 5 other National Working Committee members and development followed an earlier declaration by the Damagum-led NWC suspending Senator Samuel Anyamu, National Legal Advisor Kamal Dean Ajibadeshan, and 2 others. At a briefing in Abuja, Anyamu, while speaking for the factional NWC, named Mohammed Abdurrahman, the National Vice Chairman, North Central, as acting National Chairman. Ogun State Police Command has arrested a woman, Elizabeth Thompson, for allegedly defrauding 3 people of 8.5 million naira under the pretext of helping them secure Canadian work visas. Her arrest came shortly after the command warned residents about the rising cases of online fraud, including fake dating sites, travel and visa scams, and other schemes used to swindle unsuspecting victims. A statement by the command spokesperson CSP Omolola Odutola said the victims were deceived into believing that their visas had been approved, and when they took the supposed approval letters to the Visa Facilitation Service office in Lagos for verification, it was discovered that the documents were fake. The State Commissioner of Police, Larry Ogunlowo, has ordered a discreet investigation into the case and urged the public to be cautious, adding that despite repeated warnings from the police and several victims' experiences, many Nigerians continue to fall victim of fake travel agents. Kwara State Police Command has arrested a serial transformer vandal, Samson Ayodele, in Eroko Town, Ekiti, local government area of the state. Samson Ayodele is resident of Skyway Road, Egbe Town in Kogi State, was allegedly caught in the act by police operatives of Eroko Police Division while vandalizing the transformer that supplies electricity to Koro Town in the local government. Spokesperson of the State Police Command, SP Adetong Ejiraid Adeyemi, on Thursday said items recovered from the suspect included 3 copper wire bars, 1 fuse, 2 connection wire bars, and 2 wooden covers, adding that during interrogation, the suspect confessed to the crime and admitted that he had previously been arrested, charged, and imprisoned in Kogi State for similar offences, but returned to the same illegal act upon release. The Commissioner of Police, Kwara State Command, Adekimi Ojo, commended the vigilance of the IBEDC staff and the prompt response of the Eroko Division police officers, assuring the public that the command will not relent in protecting critical infrastructures. The command further urged residents to remain vigilant and report any suspicious movements around public utilities to the nearest police station. Kwara State Police Command has arrested 4 suspects in connection with the killing of the chief imam of Shokunpan village in Saragi, Edo, local government area of the state. The command spokesperson, SP Adetong Ejiri Adeyemi, who discloses in a statement on Thursday, said the crisis erupted after the death of a 25-year-old man, Ibrahim Ghana, who had been on admission at a hospital in the area. Following his demise, his brothers Mohammed, Shaba, and Mahmoud Ghana allegedly accused the village's chief imam, Alhaji Abdullahi Audu, of being responsible for his death and organized mob violence, including several other individuals, and attacked the chief imam with offensive weapons, leading to his death. Ejiri Adeyemi said the police operatives responded swiftly, leading to the arrest of 4 suspects while efforts were ongoing to apprehend others involved in the attack. The State Commissioner of Police, CP Adekimi Ojo, condemned the act of jungle justice and warned residents against taking the law into their own hands, describing such behavior as criminal and punishable under Nigerian law. Benue State Police Command has confirmed the arrest of 2 unidentified persons for being in possession of human parts in the state. The State Commissioner of Police, Mr. Emenari Ifeanyi, who discloses on Thursday in Makote, the state's capital, during a press conference, said the suspects were arrested in Okpuku, local government area, by the Benue State Civil Protection Guard and handed over the suspects to the police. Ifeanyi further said between mid-September and the end of October, 181 suspects were arrested in connection with armed robbery, coercive banditry, culpable homicide, and illegal possession of firearms, and within the same period, 14 incidents of homicide, 12 armed robberies, 4 kidnappings, 16 banditry and terrorism-related incidents, and 3 cult-related incidents were recorded in the state. He said a total of 15 firearms, 67 rounds of ammunition and cartridges, and 3 stolen vehicles were recovered, and 23 kidnapped victims were rescued, while a total of 445 officers and men have been promoted within the command. He commended other security agencies, particularly Operation Well Stroke, the Benue State Civil Police Protection Guards, and sister agencies for their continuous synergy to bring peace and order in the state. Operatives of the Kebbi State Police Command have killed 1 suspected bandit following an attack on Kwagware village in Arewa local government area of the state. The command spokesperson, SP Nafiu Abubakar, who confirmed the incident in a statement on Thursday, said the armed gang invaded the village while rustling an unspecified number of cows and dispossessing residents of their mobile phones. According to him, operatives from the Yehudi division in collaboration with local vigilantes pursued the attackers and engaged them in a gun duel, leading to the death of one suspect while others escaped with gunshot wounds. He said additional police tactical units, military personnel and vigilantes were deployed to this area to restore calm and prevent further attacks. The State Commissioner of Police, Bello M. Sani, commended the operatives and urged them to sustain the offensive against criminal groups across the state. Tragedy struck again in Katsina State as bandits invaded Doguwa Sorawa, a community barely 2 kilometers from Guga in Bakori local government area of the state, killing 2 elderly community leaders and abducting several residents. The latest assault, which residents described as gruesome and heartbreaking, adds to the unending wave of attacks that have left many dead and dispossessed across the area, despite the state government's widely publicized peace accord with the marauders. According to Guga, the bandits stormed the village and operated for more than an hour, killing and abducting without resistance, while the community leader expressed frustration over what he called the routine nature of bandit attacks in the area. Residents suspect that the assailants were loyal to the notorious bandit leader Idi Abasu, Aiki, and Kwashen Garua, who have long terrorized Bakori and neighboring communities. Taraba State Police commanders have reaffirmed this commitment to ensuring a peaceful, secure, and hitch-free conduct of the forthcoming local government elections slated for November 8, 2025. In a statement issued by the acting police public relations officer Ishaku Victor Micheliza on behalf of the Commissioner of Police Betty Enekpen Ishopan Otimehin, the commander assured residents that comprehensive security arrangements have been put in place across all polling units and the communities in the state. The Commissioner of Police directed all officers and men of the command to maintain the highest level of professionalism, vigilance, and neutrality throughout the electoral process, adding that the police are fully prepared to prevent and promptly respond to any form of disturbance before, during, and after the elections. Otumeni called on all residents to remain law-abiding, cooperate with security agencies, and comply with all electoral guidelines, and also encourage citizens to report any suspicious activities to the nearest police station, stressing the importance of community participation in maintaining peace and would employ intelligence-driven operations to identify and neutralize any individuals or groups attempting to disrupt the elections. The command reaffirmed its resolve to work closely with other security agencies, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and community stakeholders to ensure a credible and violence-free poll. Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf and the Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Barau Jibrin, have lauded the Nigerian military for its sustained offensive against bandits in parts of the state, particularly Shanono and Sanyanwa local government areas. A statement by his spokesperson, Sunusi Tofa, said Governor Yusuf commended the swift actions of troops and other security agencies following recent attacks. He gave the commendation while receiving the General Officer commanding 1 Division, Nigerian Army Major General Abubakar Muhammad Wasir, at the Government House, Kano, when he visited the state to assess security situations in affected areas, and also recalled with emotion his early connection to the Government House, where his late father, Colonel Muhammad Abdullahi Wase, who served as military sole administrator in 1994. Governor Yusuf expressed gratitude to the military for its commitment and thanks President Bola Tinubu for appointing service chiefs dedicated to national security, adding that the donation of 10 Hilux trucks and 60 motorcycles to the Joint Task Force operating in the affected communities, and reaffirmed his administration's resolve to support security efforts against banditry, kidnapping, and cattle rustling. According to a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Ismail Mudashe, Barawo commended the gallantry of troops and allied security units and urged residents to remain vigilant and report suspicious movements for timely security response, and further pledged continued support for security agencies across his senatorial district and the state. You're watching the Global News on Atlantic Television Network. We'll be back after this break. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. This is the Global News on Atlantic Television Network. And now to the rest of our stories. President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed his administration's commitment to defeating terrorism and strengthening diplomatic ties with Nigeria's global partners. The meeting held at the council chamber of the Aso Rock Villa, Abuja, is the first gathering of the council since July, and President Bola Tinubu's remarks come days after U.S. President Donald Trump designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern, a move the federal government has described as a misrepresentation of the nation's security situation. In his first public comments on the matter, Tinubu said his government is engaging the international community to advance security, stability, and economic growth, and also assured Nigerians that the country remains united and resolute in its pursuit of peace and prosperity. Tinubu commended members of his cabinet for their commitments to his renewed hope agenda and also stressed the need for unity and focus in implementing government reforms. President Bola Tinubu, the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Saad Abubakar, and Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma are among the dignitaries expected at this year's annual conference of the Nigerian Guard of Editors. The two-day conference, scheduled for November 12 and 13 in Abuja, will convene editors from print, broadcast, online platforms, and news agencies across the country. A statement jointly signed by NGE President Inze Anaba and General Secretary Onoha Uke, the Guard said Tinubu will declare the conference open at the State House Banquet Hall, Abuja, while the Sultan and Chairman of these day newspapers, Nduka Obaibena, will chair different sessions. The early gathering provides a platform for editors and national leaders to interrogate issues shaping governance, development, and national cohesion on this year's theme tagged Democratic Governance and National Cohesion. The role of editors, with Governor Uzodinma delivering the keynote address. There will also be a panel discussion on the sub-theme, electoral integrity and trust deficit, what Nigerians expect in 2027. The statement also said the second day of the conference will feature an executive session where editors will engage government officials, policymakers, political leaders, and captains of industry. Senators confirmed Dr. Kingsley Ude, a senior advocate of Nigeria from Enugu State, as a Minister of the Federal Republic. The confirmation followed the screening session on the Senate floor on Thursday, and he was born in 1978 and previously served as Enugu State Attorney General and the Commissioner for Justice. During the screening, the senators questioned him on national and diplomatic issues, including Nigeria's response to U.S. President Donald Trump's recent threats. He also addressed the debate on separating the offices of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, saying the success of either arrangement depends on the integrity and independence of the office holder. Satisfied with his responses, the Senate asked him to take a bow and subsequently confirmed his appointment, and the Ude's confirmation follows the resignation of Uche Nnaji, the former Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, who stepped down amid a certificate scandal. Senators received the interim report of its ad hoc committee investigating crude oil theft in the Niger Delta amid fresh concerns that Nigeria may have lost more than $300 billion unaccounted crude proceeds over the years. The loss is attributed to alleged collusion, poor industry oversight, and entrenched sabotage networks. The committee, chaired by Senator Ned Nwoko Delta North, was set up earlier this year to probe persistent crude oil theft, bunkering operations, illegal export networks, and alleged compromises within regulatory and security systems, a crisis long blamed for dwindling production and Nigeria's failure to meet Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries output quotas. Presenting the interim findings, Nwoko said the committee uncovered systemic irregularities, poor measurement standards, and weak enforcement across the petroleum value chain. The preliminary document, which runs into about 40 pages, lays out proposed reforms and urgent actions, and the committee, after extensive assessments, recommends that the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission should strictly enforce internationally accepted crude oil measurement standards at all production sites and export terminals. House of Representatives has launched a probe into all security intervention funds disbursed by the federal government from 2020 to date and vowed to ensure transparency, accountability and fiscal discipline in the management of resources meant to protect Nigerians. Chairman of the ad hoc committee on the expenditure of all intervention funds on security, Honorable Zakaria Yampahu, disclosed this at the inauguration of the committee on Thursday. At the National Assembly's Abuja said the investigation is necessitated by the widening gap between huge budgetary allocations to the security sector and the continuing wave of insecurity across the country. He said the probe will cover all intervention heads, special allocations, and procurement processes undertaken by beneficiary agencies, adding that the committee will also assess the impact of the spending on security outcomes across Nigeria and also assured that the report by committee will help strengthen security governance and restore public trust.
Duty. Our work with honorable colleagues, the task before this committee is not just administrative, it is a national duty. Our work will involve identifying the total funds disbursed under various intervention heads and special allocations, examine how these funds are utilized by the beneficiary agents, reviewing procurement processes and due process compliance, assessing outcome and the actual impact of such intervention on the security situation across the country. This assignment must be pursued with objectivity, diligence, patriotism, and integrity. It is not a witch hunt, rather it is an effort to ensure that every naira allocated for national security achieves its intended purpose, the protection of Nigerian people and its territory.
Earlier, the Speaker House of Representatives Abbas Tajuddin reaffirmed the commitment of the House Representatives to accountability, probity and utilization of all security interventions in Nigeria. Abbas, represented by the Deputy Chief Whip Ibrahim Ishaka, said the creation of the committee is a demonstration of the House's unwavering commitment to accountability in matters of national security and urged the committee members to uphold accountability, effectiveness and fairness that are the core values of the House of Representatives.
On behalf of the House of Representatives, I warmly welcome you to this pivotal gathering as we inaugurate the ad hoc committee tasked with the critical responsibility of scrutinizing the expenditure of all intervention funds dedicated to Nigeria's security architecture. Today, we reaffirm the confidence and pedigree of the House in the meticulous stewardship of public resources. The creation of this committee reflects our unwavering commitment to accountability, transparency, and physical discipline in matters of national security. We recognize that the security sector operates under intense public scrutiny, and it is incumbent upon us to ensure that every naira spent yields tangible, observable progress in safeguarding lives and property across our great nation.
Federal government has held a meeting with members of the diplomatic corps in Abuja where it addressed the allegations of religious persecution in Nigeria and also rejected the United States designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, insisting that the country didn't target any group on the basis of faith. Speaking at the diplomatic briefing in Abuja, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Donuma Ahmed, said claims of religious persecution misrepresented the country's legal and social framework, adding that Nigeria's national laws were religion neutral and designed to protect all communities equally. He said there was no offense of blasphemy in the national legal framework, adding that Sharia laws applicable in some northern states applied only to Muslims and operated under the supervision of the secular judicial system. And while addressing journalists in Abuja, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, faulted the U.S. designation of Nigeria, describing it as a product of misrepresentation and misinformation. According to Idris, terrorism, banditry, and other violent crimes in the country are not religiously motivated, stressing that since President Bola Tinubu assumed office in May 2023, security agencies had killed more than 13,500 terrorists, arrested over 17,000 suspects, and rescued more than 9,850 abducted persons, including women and children. In a related development, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, wrote to U.S. President Donald Trump to counter claims of targeted killings of Christians in Nigeria, adding that the narrative of Christian genocide is exaggerated and misleading and should not form the basis of foreign policy decisions. People's Democratic Party (PDP) has declared the establishment of a high-powered reconciliation committee as part of efforts to strengthen internal cohesion ahead of its 2025 elective national convention scheduled for November 15 and 16 in Ibadan, Oyo State. The communique presented at the end of the Board of Trustees meeting by its chairman, Senator Adolfo Oswabara, said the committee comprising members drawn from the 6 geopolitical zones and the Federal Capital Territory will be chaired by Ambassador Hassan Adamu, while Chief Mike Obi Adome will serve as secretary. The committee has been mandated to reconcile all internal disagreements within the party and submit its report to the BOT on or before Tuesday, November 11, 2025, and the BOT reaffirmed confidence in the party's current leadership and commended the National Working Committee, PDP governors, and other party structures for their roles in sustaining stability within the party. The meeting also welcomed the recent ruling of the Oyo State High Court, affirming the PDP's constitutional rights to manage its internal affairs and proceed with the 2025 National Convention, and that the decision was described as a boost to democracy and the rule of law.
As the conscience of the party, the BOT cannot and will not take sides, but remain focused on safeguarding the integrity of the PDP and ensuring dialogue over discord. The decision for reconciliation, not as a sign of weakness, but as a demonstration of maturity and responsibility. Against this backdrop, the Board of Trustees sets up a high-powered committee to immediately reconcile all conflicting sides and restore unity of purpose to our party as we head to the elective National Convention in Ibadan. The committee will be chaired by Ambassador Hassan Adamu, and the secretary will be Chief Mike Obiadome.
Some members of the People's Democratic Party on Thursday staged a peaceful protest at the United States Embassy in Abuja, calling for international intervention to safeguard Nigeria's democracy and prevent alleged drifts toward a one-party state. The protesters also submitted protest letters at the U.S. Embassy, the European Union complex, the Ministry of Justice, and the Nigerian Police Force headquarters, all in Abuja, and the protest circulating online showed demonstrators carrying placards with inscriptions reading "Fix PDP, Fix Nigeria, Save Our Democracy, Stop Party Opposition Intimidation, and Please Save Our Democracy from Intimidation," among others. According to the demonstrators, opposition members have come under increasing intimidation from the ruling party, threatening the nation's multi-party political system. This is coming after the acting national chairman, Umar Damagum, suspended National Secretary Samuel Anyanwu and others, while the rival camp loyal to Anyanwu retaliated by suspending Damagum and several officials, and the standoff has further fractured the party leadership, with both factions claiming legitimacy as the crisis continues to unsettle Nigeria's main opposition party. Economic Community of West African States, in collaboration with Islamic scholars and organizations, have called for stronger unity, cooperation, and non-violent strategies to counter terrorism and extremism across West Africa and the Sahel. The call came at the close of the first West African Islamic Conference on Security and Governance, held from November 4 to 6, 2025 at the ECOWAS Parliament in Abuja, Nigeria, and the theme of the event is the role of Islamic organizations in countering terrorism in the Sahel. The three-day conference, which was co-organized by ECOWAS and Jamiatu Ansaruddin and Atinjaniya, brought together Islamic leaders, traditional rulers, political figures, scholars, and representatives from ECOWAS member states, as well as international organizations. In his address, the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Omar Torre, who described the conference as a landmark in regional cooperation against terrorism, said the growing threat of terrorism and violent extremism in the region follows the 2025 Global Terrorism Index report that a significant shift in global terrorism patterns, with Africa emerging as a new hub of terrorism. The ECOWAS Commission President also said the regional body's action plan against terrorism focuses on both kinetic and non-kinetic strategies and the need to modernize traditional Quranic schools to prevent youth radicalization and further recognize member states' ongoing efforts to integrate traditional Islamic schools into national education systems. The Emir of Kano, Muhammad Sanusi II, commended ECOWAS for its leadership and international partners for their collaboration, and also called for continued partnership between governments and religious institutions to create a region where every individual can live in peace, security, and dignity. Directors of the Department of State Services (TSS) from Northwest states, along with their counterparts from the FCT, Niger and Plateau states, have met in Kaduna on Thursday to review prevailing security concerns and strengthen counter-terrorism strategies across the region. The high-level meeting hosted by the Kaduna DSS Command focused on enhancing intelligence sharing, improving interagency collaboration, and refining both kinetic and non-kinetic approaches to addressing terrorism, banditry, and other security agent challenges. Declaring the conference open, Kaduna State Governor Senator Oba Sani, represented by the Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Sule Shuaibu San, said intelligence-driven cooperation remains central to tackling insecurity in the Northwest and beyond. Describing the DSS as a key institution for Nigeria's internal stability, the governor commended the service for its role in strengthening national security, supporting democratic institutions, and helping disrupt violent networks, adding that the conference offers an opportunity for reflection, coordination, and strategic renewal, as well as modern security management analytical capabilities, technology-enabled intelligence, and mutual trust, among others. He also encouraged security leaders to adopt peace-building tools, including community engagement and preventive diplomacy, and to promote initiatives that reinforce justice, development, and inclusion. The Emir of Zazzau, Ambassador Ahmed Nuhu Bamali, commended the DSS for its continued collaboration with traditional institutions, adding that alternative dispute resolution mechanisms supported by this partnership have helped reduce case backlogs in the Emirates, and also stressed on the value of early accountability in traditional leadership structures. Earlier, Kaduna DSS Director Hakeem Abiola said the zonal meeting was aimed at strengthening joint efforts and addressing operational gaps, particularly in combating cross-border crimes, adding that under the leadership of the Director General Oluwatosin Adeola Ajayi, the service had carried out both kinetic and non-kinetic operations, including community peace initiatives, and further called for the creation of a regional security forum involving security chiefs, traditional rulers, and political leaders, saying coordinated regional cooperation is necessary to address evolving security threats. The tail leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has agreed to consult his legal advisors before opening his defense in the terrorism charges filed against him by the federal government. Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court, Abuja, had again urged Kanu to seek proper legal guidance after he repeatedly insisted that the 7-count charge against him was invalid, and although he had initially refused to proceed with his defense, Kanu eventually told the court he would need to confer with his legal team, listed as Nnemeka Ejiofor, Aloy Ejimako, Maxwell Okpara, and Mandela Umegborogu. The judge subsequently granted an adjournment until November 7, marking the fourth time Kanu has been given an opportunity to open his defense or waive his right to do so, and Kanu had in October sacked his legal team, headed by a former Attorney General of Federation, Kanu Agabisan, opting to defend himself and initially submitted a list of 23 witnesses he intended to call, including the Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike. He, however, later made a U-turn, insisting there was no need to defend himself as the charges against him were unknown to any valid law in Nigeria, adding that the prosecution failed to amend the charges allegedly directed by the Supreme Court, that the prima facie case had been established against Kanu, citing non-availability of documents from former lawyers. At Wednesday's session, the federal government's counsel, Adegboyega Awomolo Sharon San, urged the court to enforce its order requiring Kanu to either defend himself or waive his rights, but Justice James Omotosho said he would again bend backward in the interest of justice to allow Kanu consult lawyers knowledgeable in criminal law. Former banker Samuel Ashegbu has been sentenced to 3 years imprisonment without an option of fine for his role in an 8.56 billion naira fraud involving one of Nigeria's first-generation banks. A statement issued by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) via its official website said Ashegbu was arraigned alongside several other defendants on a 4-count charge bordering on conspiracy, stealing, and unauthorized access to a computer system with intent to commit fraud, contrary to sections 409 and 386 of the Criminal Law of Lagos State 2011. The defendants were first arraigned before a federal high court in Lagos on June 23, 2025, and all initially pleaded not guilty, while Ashebu later changed his plea to guilty, prompting Justice Rahman Oshodi to convict and sentence him. The trial of the remaining defendants will continue, with the court adjourning the case to November 14, 2025 for further proceedings. Federal government has commenced the disbursement of interest-free loans to workers in universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education nationwide, and the loans introduced under the Tertiary Institution Staff Support Fund are aimed at improving the welfare of the tertiary institution staff. Speaking during the official rollout at the Federal University of Technology, Akure, the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, said the initiative was part of President Bola Tinubu's renewed Hope Agenda, and Alausa, who was accompanied by the Minister of State for Education, Professor Shuaiba Ahmad, said over 30,000 academic and non-academic workers had applied for the loan, while about 9,000 applications had so far been approved. According to him, 70% of the beneficiaries are non-academic staff, while 30% are academic, adding that although the official presentation was taking place at FUTA, disbursements had already begun, stressing that the zero-interest loans of up to 10 million naira would support housing, healthcare, transportation, and small business development. In her remarks, FUTA Vice Chancellor Professor Adenike Oladiji thanks the federal government for including the institution among the beneficiaries of its initiatives, including the $1 billion commercial aid program. Academic Staff Union of Universities has denied receiving 50 billion naira revitalization fund the federal government recently claimed to have released, insisting that none of the union's demands had been met ahead of each National Executive Council meeting slated for November 8 and 9, 2025. Also, in a statement signed by Professor Jube Mowu, said the union suspended its 2-week warning strike in good faith after assurances from senior government officials that concrete proposals would be brought to the table, and also forwarded comments by the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, claiming that 2.3 billion naira had been released to settle salary and promotion arrears, and further urged Nigerians to hold the federal government accountable, warning that it may resume its strike if its demand are not met by November 21, 2025, being the end of its 4-week ultimatum. Also said, following its National Executive Council meeting scheduled to hold on the 8th and 9th November 2025, some of the outstanding entitlements such as the 3.5 months withheld salaries, 25/35% wage award arrears, promotion arrears, unpaid salaries of some members would have been paid to universities workers by now, adding that the federal government's recent declaration of a 50 billion naira disbursement had not translated into payment to universities. This is coming after ASU had declared a 2-week total and comprehensive strike on October 12th, following a 14-day ultimatum issued to government on September 28th, and the union cited the federal government's failure to address staff welfare, infrastructure funding, implementation of the 2009 ASU FGN agreement, and salary arrears. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and the TED Fund, Senator Aliyu Dantuze, said the Senate would initiate a new negotiation process involving ASU, the Ministry of Education, and the National Universities Commission to find a lasting solution. And now to some business news. Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited have declared plans to supply excess power generated from the Port Harcourt Refining Company to the national grid. The partnership was unveiled during an official visit by the Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu, to Genesis Energy's operational site within the Port Harcourt Refinery in Eleme, Rivers State, which he said is aimed at improving grid stability, expanding electricity sub-access, and advancing Nigeria's energy transition goals. Genesis Energy said in a statement that it operates the nation's largest licensed private off-the-grid clean power plant, an 84 megawatt facility that supplies sustainable energy to the Port Harcourt Refinery, which is currently dormant due to an ongoing technical review. This is coming after the Minister of Power recently lamented that Nigeria had over 10,000 megawatts of power locked in idle plants across the nation, and the Port Harcourt Refinery could only use 20 megawatts out of its current capacity, leaving over 60 megawatts stranded. While under the new arrangement, Genesis Energy and NNPC will work together to channel the refinery's excess of stranded power to the national grid, in line with the federal government's power sector reform and energy transition agenda. Speaking during the visit, Adelabu commended Genesis Energy's operational excellence and reaffirmed the federal government's support for private sector investment in the power industry, and further assured that the government would fast-track transmission, infrastructure, and commercial arrangements to enable seamless evacuation of power from the facility to the grid. Nigerian filling stations have reduced the price of premium motor spirit as the landing cost of petrol dropped further below Dangote Refinery's ex-depot price. NNPC retail outlets in Abuja adjusted their pump price from downward to 945 naira per litre, up from 955 naira, while other filling stations including MRS, Dangote Petrol and Ranoi, retail petrol prices have remained unchanged at 950 naira and 955 naira per litre, respectively, as of Thursday morning. This comes days after energy prices data released on November 3, 2025 by the major energy marketers association of Nigeria showed that the price of the landing cost of petrol dropped 827.4 naira per litre, and a drop from 829.77 naira recorded at the end of last month. Also, the petrol landing cost at 827.4 naira per litre is 45 naira 96 kobo cheaper than Dangote Refinery's ex-depot price for petrol, which stood at 872 naira per litre. And this comes as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu announced that he has given approval to a 15% import duty tax on petrol and diesel to encourage Dangote Refinery. Decision by marketers and stakeholders confirmed that it will increase imported fuel prices when implemented in the coming days. President of the Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo, has faulted the federal government's proposed 15% import duty on premium motor spirits, otherwise known as petrol, could further worsen the living conditions of Nigerians. Osifo said the union is currently studying the policy and consulting with stakeholders to understand its full implications. The union leader raised concerns that while the government argues that the duty would protect local refining capacity, its immediate impact could be a sharp increase in pump prices since Nigeria still imports about 70% of the its PMS needs, and called for clarity from the government on the scope and boundaries of the tax, questioning whether it would apply solely to importers of petrol from abroad or also to those operating within Nigeria's free trade zones. He argued that without clear guidelines, the policy could create confusion and ultimately burden ordinary Nigerians at the pump, adding that labor and industry stakeholders must be properly consulted before such a decision takes effect. He also said the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria and the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria would issue a defined and informed position after accessing the policy details, stressing that the union's priority remains safeguarding workers and citizens from further economic hardship. Chairman of the OPEC Board of Governors for 2025 has called on Nigerian oil producers to prioritize domestic refining and value creation instead of exporting raw crude, adding that President Bola Tinubu would have returned fuel subsidies if the Dangote refinery had not been there to produce fuel locally, stressing that local refining and crude utilization would also help stabilize the naira and strengthen the nation's economy. Speaking at the Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists pre-conference workshop in Lagos, Adeyemo Bello, who is also the Chief Executive Officer of First Exploration and Petroleum Development Company, said the country must move away from decades of crude exports and focus on retaining value within the local economy, adding that Nigeria has a responsibility to develop its energy resources locally and use them to drive industrial growth rather than depend on foreign markets. Adeyemi Bello said Nigeria must deliberately reduce its dependence on exports and focus on value creation to avoid future economic decline, and called for renewed commitments among local operators as well as international oil companies, stressing that the oil and gas sector remains central to achieving the country's economic aspirations, including its $1 trillion economic target. Adeyemi Bello urged industry players to take ownership of Nigeria's energy future, while President of the Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists, Mr. John Bosco Uche, said the pre-conference workshop was a vital part of the association's annual conference and a platform for industry leaders to deliberate on critical sector issues which had reflected the urgency of the times and the need for collective industry action. And now to international tidbits. All Progressives Congress in the United States has written to the leadership of the U.S. Congress, urging caution over recent claims of a Christian genocide in Nigeria. The letter dated November 5, 2025 is coming up following U.S. President Donald Trump's recent threats to deploy American military forces to Nigeria if the alleged genocide against Christians is not stopped. The APC USA, in the letter addressed to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and Senate Minority Leader John Toney, called for diplomatic engagement rather than military intervention and America's commitments to global religious freedom, but warned against what he described as distorted narratives about Nigeria's security situation, signed by the chapter's chairman, Professor Tai Balofin. The letter expressed concern that the recent classification of Nigeria as a country of particular concern by Trump could be influenced by misinformation and partisan politics within Nigeria ahead of the 2027 general elections. According to Balofin, while violent incidents have tragically claimed many lives, They stem largely from long-standing communal and resource-based conflicts between farmers and herders in Nigeria's middle belt rather than targeted religious persecution, stressing that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has demonstrated impartial and decisive leadership in addressing insecurity, especially the June 2025 massacre in Benue State, where over 200 predominantly Christian lives were lost. United States President Donald Trump has repeatedly claimed that Christians in general in Nigeria are being subjected to mass killings, warning that the alleged attacks amount to an existential threat to Christianity in the country. Trump, in a video uploaded by the White House on X, said thousands and thousands of Christians were being killed, blaming radical Islamists for what he described as a mass slaughter, calling for urgent action, and Trump said the statistics were horrific and demanded an immediate congressional response. Trump said the United States cannot stand by and while such incidents take place, saying the killing of Christians will not be allowed, adding that the United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria and numerous other countries. This is coming after President Donald Trump had earlier threatened to deploy U.S. Department of War to Nigeria if what he described as Christian genocide is not halted, stressing that a publication by the Family Research Council in 2022, the designation is typically issued by the U.S. government, usually the Secretary of State, in situations where a country is seen to be involved in actions considered harmful to basic human rights. The meaning and weight of the designation depends on the specific statute applied, but it usually signals that the country is engaging in practices the United States considers dangerous to universal freedoms or U.S. national interests. United States lawmaker leading an inquiry into alleged attacks on Christians in Nigeria, Riley Moore, has pledged to brief President Donald Trump soon, following the president's renewed claims that Christians are being targeted in the West African nation. Trump, in a speech, he reiterated that Nigeria has been redesignated a country of particular concern under U.S. law, citing what he described as large-scale killings of Christians by Islamic terrorists, and urged U.S. lawmakers to take immediate action, pointing to alarming statistics of global Christian persecution. The president called for swift legislative oversight and named those he expects to take the lead, and also hinted that the United States could intervene militarily if the alleged killings continue. Responding to Trump's comment in a post via his verified X, formerly Twitter handle, on Thursday, Moore appreciated Trump for defending persecuted Christians, especially in Nigeria, and reaffirmed his decision to place Nigeria on the CPC list following a claim of Christian genocide. The Nigerian government, in response, strongly rejected Trump's assertions, stressing that describing them as inaccurate and misleading, adding that violence in the country stems from broader insecurity rather than religious persecution. In a post on his X handle, President Bola Tinubu reiterated Nigeria's commitment to religious freedom and dismissed the genocide claims as a distortion of the nation's reality, stressing that his administration will continue to work with both Christian and Muslim leaders to address security challenges nationwide. 31 members of the United States Congress have applauded President Donald Trump for designating Nigeria as a country of particular concern over the alleged persecution of Christians, describing the move as a necessary step to confront what they called a growing Christian genocide in Africa's most populous nation. A statement by House Values Action Team Chairman Rep. Robert Adeholt, lawmaker, said the Trump-led action gave hope to the people of Nigeria and signaled a strong U.S. commitment to defending religious freedom globally, warning that persecution of Christians must end. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer commended Trump's stance, saying, "God bless President Trump for standing up and protecting Christians around the globe," adding that the United States finally had a leader unafraid to do what's right. Also, the Grand Old Party chair, Lisa McClain, described the situation in Nigeria as a moral outrage and a crime against humanity, while Rep. Josh Brekin, Mary Miller, and Mark Alford expressed support for sanctions and stronger international pressure on those responsible for religious attacks. Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Africa Subcommittee, Rep. Chris Smith, also said Trump's decision restored the 2020 CPC, the designation that was unjustifiably lifted by the Biden administration. Here now is A10 Sports News. Head coach of the Super Eagles, Eric Chelle, is pounding over the list of players he will invite for the 2026 World Cup Continental Playoffs. Nigeria is set to face Gabon and Rabat, Morocco, in exactly 1 week time. Bochel is yet to release an official call-up list ahead of the crucial game. Although there has been criticism of his team selection and tactics, the Malan appears to have found the right balance in recent matches. Under his guidance, the Eagles have recorded 4 wins and 2 draws from 6 competitive matches, collecting 14 points from a possible 18 in the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifiers. And now entertainment news. Nigerian celebrity chef Hilda Basi has received her second Guinness World Record plaque, officially recognizing her achievement for cooking the world's largest pot of jollof rice. According to Guinness World Record, Basi prepared 8,780 kilograms, 19,356 pounds of jollof rice during a Lagos cookout in September, a feat that has now been confirmed as the largest ever, which marks her second global recognition, coming a little over a year after earning her first Guinness title for completing a 93-hour, 11-minute cooking marathon in May 2023. With both records, Basi becomes Nigeria's first and most decorated chef to hold multiple Guinness World Records. Basi's jollof rice attempt pulled a massive crowd of over 20,000 food lovers, celebrities and influencers, and every portion of the massive jollof rice dish was distributed to guests and charity groups in line with Guinness verification standards. And that's the global news for tonight. Before we go, a quick look throughout major stories. INEC begins distribution of materials for Anambra election. Police assure hitch-free local government elections in November 8 in Taraba. Tinubu vows to crush terrorism in Nigeria. NNPCL links power to greed. Typhoon kills 140 persons in Philippines. And FIFA appoints referees for Nigeria vs Gabon playoffs. Hilda Basu receives second Guinness World Record plaque. I am Favor Chico Michael. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on social media platforms on Twitter at Atlantic TV Net, on Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, and Instagram at Atlantic TV Network. And not forget, peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you for watching and do have a wonderful night's rest.